Something a little different tonight. Today I had a site visitor write in with a question, and I'm going to go ahead and handle that question on the spot here. Over on the right side, you'll see frequent visitor Itai asking about USB 3 cards and passing it through on ESXi 5.5. Let's go ahead and give it a try and record it. Now, where do you do it on the vSphere web client? Things have changed. How do you turn on this function? Well, if you click on Hosts and Clusters, you can click or highlight on the ESXi host. Sounds good. And under the Manage tab, you'll find PCIe devices. Nothing much happening there until you click the little pencil icon for Edit. And now we're talking. Let's get this as big as possible. I want you to see what's going on in here. All right, we've got a lot of information about the devices, and it can be a little tricky to spot what's what. Let's see how we do. Let's collapse these sections a little bit. Okay, so if we scroll down, what I'm looking for is 4 AS Media USB controller chips all on one PCI card. So we should see some sort of sequential numbering scheme if indeed I found the right devices. Let's see if we can get a sort to actually have these jump right out at us. Because my motherboard also has some USB 3 ports by AS Media. All right, well, sorting by ID number sure looks the most promising. We can see 4 devices, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I was kind of expecting them to be all on the same, indent level, but they're all AS MediaTek. They all have the same exact description, and they're all sequential. So it's highly likely I've got this right. So I'm going to click OK. All right. Doesn't say a whole lot over there. If we go back in, you'll see the word pending next to the 4 things we just did, okay? So we can click cancel. So we went in, we activated, and now nothing's going to happen until we reboot the host. So we'll go ahead and reboot ESXi at this point. It's going to ask us why. And if we have a look here, vCenter console is now shutting down because I have it set to auto start and auto stop. Definitely a good idea for 5.5. I've covered that in my build your own data center video. And there it is, shutting down. ESXi itself, okay, there we go. We lose our web connection. ESXi itself is going to go down as well. And you'll see that here on the console view. It's going to take a little while to reboot. I'll go ahead and speed up time at this point. Okay, we've rebooted. You may remember clicking on hosts and clusters and then selecting your ESXi host is where you want to go, then the Manage tab, and PCI devices. And all of the devices shut up. That's good. Now, here's our inventory of virtual machines. How about this Windows 8.1 VM that's turned off? Perfect opportunity to click Edit on its settings. Notice it's VM version 10 for the hardware. I don't know what the minimum level is that you need to get USB 3 support. I'm just going to go with VM version 10 for the purposes of this demonstration. And what are we doing? Well, we're adding a PCI device. All right, this is pretty groovy. Let me explain what I mean. It shows up as 4 different devices, which is awesome because you can assign one USB 3 port to one VM and a different USB 3 port to another. I'll point out that the lowest port number is the highest in elevation above the motherboard. So the first USB, first device is furthest away from the PCI slot that you stick this card in. All right, so let's go ahead and assign them all. So this VM will not power on until its memory reservation equals its memory size. All right, let's see what happens if we ignore that warning and just keep adding. Okay, so we've added all the devices. And we click OK. And we wait. It says it's reconfiguring. It finished reconfiguring. Now, is it going to let us power on? Error. So, it's telling us about an invalid memory reservation. So it offered, wizard style, to go ahead and set aside this memory for us. And I ignored it. So, let's clean it up. Okay, notice we only had to click that button once. So we want all memory to have access to that PCI device. And now, we should be able to power it on without incident. Okay, so what's going on here is we've added an HCI. Still powering on. It takes longer to power on, you'll notice, when you have pass-through set or VTD. That's normal. This was true on ESXi 5.1 as well. One of the more subtle disadvantages to using it. We also can no longer do vMotion. Can't move this virtual machine around. So if that's important to you, it's something to consider. All right, so that VM's coming up. So there's no assignment of USB devices. You just assign the PCI device to the VM, and then the whole VM has access to all of its ports in this case, because we added all 4 ports. So unlike USB 2, where you have to add a USB 2 controller and then kind of map with the GUI what virtual machines get what USB device that the hypervisor recognizes, this time it's just passed through to the underlying VM. So let's log in. I believe this is a rather fresh copy of Windows 8.1. It is. Let's hit Windows plus X key. Very handy way to bring up Device Manager. Okay. There you go. So the AS media has already been found, and it's a Microsoft driver. It just comes along with Windows 8.1. So it's gotten very simple on 8.1. All right. What is next? Well, how about sticking in some devices? This should be cool. The machine's not right next to me. Let me go do this. I'm going to go ahead and plug in a fast Mushkin USB 3 flash drive into port 1, or the lowest port, or I think it's at port 5, right? I'm going to take an older Transcend drive, stick that in the second port, and then the fourth port, the one real close to the motherboard, that one is getting a USB 3 to gigabit adapter that I'm not sure Windows 8.1 is going to have a native driver for. So we have a variety of stuff that we've added to the virtual machine. The interesting part will be getting an idea of what kind of speeds we're getting on these devices. All right, I'm back at the console looking at what's going on here, and you can see the Mushkin and the Transcend drives added. If we look under network adapters, nice, the USB 3 to gigabit adapter is also added. That gives you some interesting possibilities. Hopefully I got you thinking, right? Let's next test the speed. All right, so Rufus is a really good utility for this, and I already have a video that gives me some idea of the speed we can expect with Rufus. So how about we use Rufus to do a kind of 2-minute, not really a benchmark, but it'll give us some idea if it's performing as it should. So we got to download Rufus first of all. Okay, now we have a utility that should be able to deal with these drives. There's 2 drives in there. So I'm just making things more interesting for myself by having 2 flash drives. That wouldn't normally be an issue. How do we know which drive is which? How about Windows plus X? Disk management. Okay, 32 gig is the Transcend, 16 gig is the Mushkin. So it's drive E that I'm going to want to do the speed test on. Okay, what else do we need? We need a file. Let me grab an ISO and we'll get going on that. So we've got a file now. It's ESXi install. Let's point to that file. Right, now we're ready to use Rufus as a kind of casual benchmark to see if we're getting decent USB 3.0 performance. Clicking Start Now. Bottom right corner will tell us with a clock how many minutes and seconds it takes. "27 seconds. So we can now eject devices the proper way, the way you're supposed to, by clicking on the tray. And let's eject this Mushkin. Right there, it said eDrive Mushkin. You could tell the manufacturer. So that would have been an easier way than Drive Manager. Now I've stuck the same USB key in my local laptop. And we're going to run Rufus. I'm going to point to the same ISO. And click Start. 26 seconds. All right, so there you have it, a full demonstration of using ESXi 5.5 to pass through USB 3 and get good performance out of it. So after recording that video, it dawned on me that I looked at it and all the machines were inaccessible over here. They were on the motherboard's SATA ports, and having this add-on PCI adapter at the same time as the HighPoint somehow made it so the motherboard's SATA ports weren't being recognized by ESXi. So popped out that card and everything's back in action. So adding the HighPoint to the mix, the PCI enumeration, somehow this didn't get along with the HighPoint at all. That's okay. I not ending up needing to use that SATA card anyway. So with the HighPoint back in and ESXi pass-through function being turned off and then back on again since I did this video, I'm now ready to show you in edit settings that I noticed when reactivating or re-adding these PCI devices, it gives me warnings about the limitations here, but it also doesn't talk about the memory. So the yellow button is just gone. So it seems like it's kind of saved that somewhere in the VMX file and never to bother me again with that question. All right, so let's go ahead and boot it up. The powering on takes a while when pass-through is active. Let me resume recording this video once the thing is booted, because now I've added some USB 3 flash drives. And I'm going to want to kind of test the speed of concurrent operations to really drive the discrete or separate AS media chips that this USB 3 card has. That's why it's expensive, because it's basically not a USB 3 hub, which would be kind of a cheap way to do it, but it's actually 4 different separate USB 3 controllers all in one PCIe card. It's supposed to be able to handle full speed with even all 4 devices busy. Let's use Rufus. And use Rufus again. All right, can't use Rufus twice. So we've got resource monitor, watching the drives, start that, right click copy, and right click paste, and right click paste. So a whole bunch of drive activity. Did it slow down Rufus at all? The fact that we're beating on 2 other flash drives on the same HighPoint card at the same time? And the answer is no. Still finished in 25 seconds. Hopefully you found this video helpful. It's not meant to be a scientific benchmark. It's really meant to be a real-world, quick stopwatch kind of informal test. Thank you for watching and for visiting tinkertry.com.